Hey y'all, Implicitly Gamer here. As you can tell from my extremely manly voice, you can probably infer that I'm a really manly gamer who played Gears of War. Although it's a franchise that didn't stay with me beyond my teens, largely because I was so afraid of my 360 getting the red ring of death, because the disc tray, the controller charger, and the charging block all stopped working. I ended up getting a PS3 and trading in all of my games, including Gears 1 through 3. However, I recently got back into them largely because of Noah Gervais's video essay, who's easily the best essayist out there, by the way. So here's my 10 cents. If that's the right saying, because we don't use cents here in the UK. If I could describe Gears of War in one word, it'd be blunt. They are third-person cover shooters, a mechanic where at one glance not only do you know how to play, but you're probably going to be an expert of the moment you pick it up. And revisiting this franchise is this system at its most purest form. Everything about Gears of War is simple, even the controls are uncomplicated. X is interact, Y draws you to a point of interest, and B is melee. A is take cover or evade. There's no fiddly multifunctional buttons or learning curve. Instead, the mechanical depth comes from the map designs, weapons, and enemy health. The active reload, for example, contributes to training you into a flow and reminds you that every decision you make has a dual sense of risk and a reward. You f up the reload, an enemy is coming in, your weapon is jammed, you're gonna die. You get it right, you get a damage boost, and that can turn the tide immediately. Because the main goal of the game is advancement. Enemies can receive loads of damage. Not enough to be boring, but enough to create a sense of danger when they push in on you. So you have to learn how to navigate the maps, which are very symmetrically organized. Everything is designed to teach you the value of distance with the enemy, and therefore what sort of gamble comes from your tactical decisions. This is why squad mates are important within the campaign. They create an ambient level of busyness that makes split-second flanking possible. And it also speeds up the battle so the arena-like kill everyone in the room design doesn't get too annoying.
Be ready to move as soon as the power comes back online.
Whatever, boss man.
Within the design, there's a level of comfortable artifice built in, where function comes before everything else. Furthermore, this functional comfort with being artificial and blunt carries over into the story of the first Gears. It's about a military team getting data for a super weapon, the light mass bomb, against the Locust, a bunch of evil mole people. What really stood out to me with my recent playthrough is how extremely plot-driven the writing is. Every objective and the overall general arc is very impersonally written. The only explicit character arc is with Hoffman, your boss who speaks like this.
Traitor like you doesn't deserve to wear the uniform.
Who's always looking down on Marcus as a treacherous douche, and by the end sees him and you with respect after your success. Everyone else kind of just learns to broadly learn to become a team, even though there's no real distinct drama with not getting along too badly. It's just sort of, you know, in the background, decorative.
We came here to help you, and that's what we're gonna do.
Marcus kind of develops from being a man out of prison to a good leader, but I mean, that's not the deepest thing in the world. The drama instead is mainly rooted in the developing situation.
Phoenix, report!
Anya, are you seeing this?
All the objectives are about, come here, get this. Oh no, it's enemies attack. It's blunt man on a mission with orders. But it's within this bluntness that the story finds a beautiful balance with the gameplay. Everything feels just right. It feels harmonious.
Welcome back to the army, soldier.
The sophistication instead comes from the naturalism of everything else, the aesthetics of a beautiful world turned to rubble, the colors of grey, the horror mood and lighting, the claustrophobia and subtle contrast of Cole screaming at giant monsters and giant spiders with big guns. This campiness then evolves into becoming the main driving tonal trait in the next game. Before replaying Gears 2, I remembered it as like a proper serious war game about a tragedy and undying camaraderie, but actually it's a schlocky B-movie.
They're sinking cities with a giant worm!
Kind of like Alien to Aliens. It goes from being kind of claustrophobic, very horror-driven, to an all-out war. It's about giant worms sinking cities and a squad of dude bros going in to cut it up. And then they win the war against the mole people by sinking their last city on them. You even pilot a Brumac at one point, so it feels like a goofy monster movie. Although not to dismiss the more emotional work done with Dom finding Maria.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, man.
which very much overpowered my memories, but that's more of a second act digression than it is some sort of main framing device. And what that does is act as the first major step of the franchise gaining more of a strong personal dimension to it that was previously kind of restrained. But regardless, under the campy B-movie quality is a composition of tones that kind of operates like Starship Troopers, where there's dual readings between the surface uber bro self-indulgent war story
Running away won't help! I'll just shoot you in your asses!
and an anti-war critique that depicts a military fascist world ruining everything, i.e. the solution to the conflict is literally the fucking main characters choosing to destroy their own city, Jacinto, before the Locusts do in order to beat them. Self-destruction is literally used in order to win.
I thought you were insane.
You seem to have that effect on people.
As a result, Gears of War 2 within the big picture storytelling is the last gasp of total war, where both sides have recovered enough to kill each other one last time as two armies fighting for their homes. Gears of War 2 is a great game outside of the garbage vehicle section, but it's not until the next one that I think I really fell in love with the franchise. Gears of War 3 is my favorite, I'm not gonna lie. Although I did went into expecting it to be a bridge between the plot-driven Epic Games era of Gears to the more character-driven ones from the Coalition, but upon replaying it, it's a complete step into the new style, where characters are no longer cogs, haha, in a plot machine, but are driving forces in a more personal adventure. In this case, it's about dudes who love their daddies and wifeys facing their past.
Yeah, Prescott's back, Michelson's dead, and my father's alive. Film at 11.
Furthermore, this is a more hopeful Gears that steps out of its enclosed satirical edged world about a never-ending war between two fascistic factions to tell a story about coming home to let the past die in order to let there be a future. Cole returns to his hometown in Act 1.
You ever feel like you did, but nobody told you?
He reconnects with the community and relives the glory of the past for a moment. Dom goes home and dies to save his friends. Marcus returns to his father, but he dies as the war also ends. Everyone finds peace in some way, even if there's a great cost, because that's the price of living after this war. This more personal shift can be credited to Karen Travis, who wrote the acclaimed Gears of War books and is now the lead writer here. She's one of the main architects of this universe and helped give it the necessary credibility to be considered good military sci-fi. Furthermore, the anti-war subtext is brought to the forefront now, with the Lambent taking priority. The Coalition is falling apart, with everyone becoming just folks now, and the discovery of a secret island where the powerful lived well, away from everything. It's not just about us versus them, it's about us versus us, and it's also about facing the consequences, which both sides ignored. Also, mechanically, this is also my favorite. They miraculously made exploding enemies not irritating, and the Anvil Gate section is the best thing ever. First, you've got to defend these 3 gates, which continues until they enter, then it ends with a big bang. Then you've got to go out to rescue Anya and Sam, which leads to the Lambent coming in. The Hammer of Dawn then gets connected, which you have to avoid and fight at the same time, leading you back inside where the final boss is there. The graphics are amazing and it's like whoa. In the end, Marcus questions, what did they win? Anya replies,
We finally got it tomorrow.
but is the world of Gears of War one of a circle or a line of progression? That's answered not by the next game, but the one after that.
I'm so confused right now, baby.
Gears of War Judgement is not very good. It's not awful by any means, but it's very just kind of lame. As a prequel, it doesn't really add much to the history, which is weird, especially when you compare it to a piece of DLC like Ram's Shadow. It's also very much an arcadey experience with a scoreboard at the end of every level, which is annoying and very immersion breaking.
Swing is getting hammered.
There's also this extremely cheap narration used to maintain a sense of story coherency, whereas in reality, the game is really just a bunch of maps strung together very loosely. There's also no introduction to the story, it just throws you straight into the squad, which is very weird. But on a more positive level, I do like the format of this being a trial where Barrett and his squad are telling their side of the story.
I had to see if my friends were alright.
I like it primarily because it has fun with the premise that the COG are ultimately a fascist military regime, where the military bureaucracy is as much of a villain as the Locust.
You might want to consider postponing the tribunal to...
You might want to consider getting back out there and fighting, Captain.
Sir, they're right outside!
Then it'll be a short walk.
Overall, the story is very cliched because guess what? After everyone's testimony, the Locust attack interrupt the verdict, which in this case is death.
Any last words?
So you fight the main bad guy, leading to the judge forgiving Baird, so he just gets a firm scolding instead.
I'm dropping the charges, but you'll never be an officer again.
How original and unpredictable, children. But after 40 stars, you unlock Aftermath, a Gears of War 3 midquel where Baird and Russian buddy Paddock reunite and get the boat, which then arrives to aid Marcus in the end of Gears 3. Ironically, it's more fun than the main game, but not substantive to call it the greatest thing since sliced bread. The next game is the real next step for the franchise. Gears of War 4 was the hardest to write about because it's just so alright. It has a very slow story and it's borderline monotonous. However, it's also tight and yet strategic at the same time because the story deliberately covers very little events in order to let you settle in this new status quo and new time period and universe. Marcus's son, JD, is part of a ragtag group of young rebels against the new COG regime that's repeating the same errors of the old. They then find Marcus to investigate the Swarm, who are just the old Locusts. What this plot does is create a duality in the premise. This is important world building stuff, but also it creates fairly strong character drama between Marcus and JD.
The Swarm, huh? Okay.
The new characters are perfectly fine. Likeable enough to not get in the way, but they also kind of lack individuality. The old Delta Squad were lovable because everyone was very distinct. They were cliched but distinct. Baird was a sarcastic genius who complained as much as he could solve problems. Cole was a positive hype man whose charisma kept everything alive, even in the most bleakest of situations. Marcus was a straightforward soldier with deeply compassionate values. Dom was just a guy. Every pairing created friction that felt fun and lively. The new trio are just very happy-go-lucky, likable people who get along, and their differences are more based on function rather than actual character personality contents. Dell is the tech guy, JD is the brave leader, and Kate is the straight-faced chick that the entire plot is built around. And I have to stress, if it wasn't for Gears 5's development and how it reflects and recontextualizes the relationships here, I really wouldn't have fallen in love with them. Gears 5 is a direct continuation, and I really love it. I know the multiplayer was apparently fucked when it came out because of the monetization stuff, tweaks to the gameplay, and very much a poor launch. But I don't play multiplayer games, so none of that bothered me. Gears 5 actually confronts the question set from Gears 3. Is there a future beyond the mess that were created long ago? Is Gears of War a universe that exists in a cycle or in a line of improvement? The gang tries to activate the Hammer of Dawn, a new one, which is a giant space laser satellite used in the old wars against the Locust, but also our own human cities. So our hero spends loads of time sending a new one out to fight against the Swarm. Kate is also the granddaughter of the Locust Queen, Mira. Her mother is the new queen, and the Swarm slowly evolves to resemble more like the Locust. The Nile stuff from Gears 2 is then brought back to reveal that the Locusts were also in fact created by humans. They were the children of the miners of Emulsion.
The Emulsion miners' children provided a marvelous genetic repository, as did the indigenous creatures of the Hollow.
War itself in this universe is a cycle that creates the existential prison bars of this whole universe, like how it twisted Adam Phoenix's research, destroyed its world, and eventually led to the mutual destruction of the Lambent. I can't stress how great it is to play these games in sequential order and see how this game has the balls and complexity to face all of the subtext that's been building up for years and years. And the whole gang are now a winning combination. You've got Faz, a douchebag army bro. JD is now a war criminal. A retcon that I actually thought made him way more interesting because he's not a spotless Nathan Drake type. He has actual flaws outside of not just having a bad relationship with his father. He's got a disagreeable viewpoint, one that has more in common with the fascistic values of the COG, the very people that threw his father in prison before the games even began.
Guess who ordered the first shot, Del?
directly into those peaceful protesters of yours.
That is so fucked up, I love it. Furthermore, on a gameplay level, it feels like the true mechanical evolution for the franchise. The integration of Jack, your robot buddy, in aiding with retrieving ammo and getting a shield for your moment and doing stuff like that, means you can be way more aggressive. But to balance everything out, they made ammo way more scarce. The active reload is also paced differently. You can do it even when your bullets aren't used up. And also the game adopts a wide linear approach, where there's massive spaces. Not open world, neither are they hub worlds, but more like a massive corridor, with side missions, and is a very clever way to distribute lore details, and gives you more control of the pacing. You can just keep fighting if you want, it doesn't slow you down if you don't want to. The precise moment when I fell in love with this game and realized I had fallen in love with the characters and this whole franchise as a whole was when Robocall showed up to fight the sandworm at the end. And when that doesn't work, Paddock was like staying back for us to leave. Either Dell or JD is dead and emotions are high, and I find myself really deeply caring for the survivors. And at the very end, when the music just cuts in, and there was this feeling of foreboding inevitability that things are gonna go worse, I was like, oh fuck, I'm hooked. 5 games in, and it's still going strong. If I had to rank them, it'd be Gears 3 is number 1, number 2 is Gears 5, number 3 is Gears of War 1, number 4 is Gears 2, number 5 is Gears of War 4, and number 6 is Gears of War Judgement. By the way, I'm only sticking to the main games, because even though all the DLCs are great, I refuse to give Microsoft any more of my money now that I'm playing these games on a borrowed Xbox One. Regardless, I want to close this video by stressing how all of these games outside of Judgement, and even then it's not the worst thing ever, they're very brutally consistent in story, mechanics, design, and even as a cultural symbol of Xbox's brand. The first game represented the dawn of the 360 era. Gears 2 represented the height of it. Gears 3 was at the end, before the Kinect destabilized Xbox's credibility as a gamer-first brand. Judgement alongside Halo 4 was when Microsoft precisely stopped innovating and mainly obsessed with pursuing a casual market and overly depending on old franchises. Gears 4 and Gears 5 is during the Phil Spencer era of, hey, we're trying, but we literally have an entire ocean of consumer apathy pushing against us. So even though we're making good stuff, it's not quite generating the needed impact. But throughout all of this, Gears of War stood strongly, reliably, and respectably. I love you, Gears of War. And I hope I can get a gaming PC at one point so I can own you properly.
Show me your soul. Baby, I'll show you mine. Show me your soul. Honey, it's way past time. How explicit do I have to be? Need I spell it out before you get it, baby?
Hey all, so that was the Gears of War video, a video that I had absolutely no plans to make, but after completing these games in January, I felt like a real, need to make it, especially after I borrowed my friend's Xbox One. And you know what, I might as well try and be a gaming essayist, even if nobody watches these videos. Anyways, I also needed some extra time on a couple more other video essays that were taking way longer to make. There's an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. video, there's a DCEU Wonder Woman video, there's an Eternals/William Blake video, a video about Tony Stark's legacy after No Way Home. There's a bunch of stuff, and I was like, you know what, everything is taking a really long time and I want to upload something. So here it is, Gears of War. I hope you enjoyed this. It was just me sort of rambling, because I thought I had something profound to say, but in hindsight, not really. Anyways, special thanks to everyone on Patreon. You guys, I love you. I love you. I love you.
God, you're an asshole.
Oh, stop falling in love with me.